Hello everyone. First of all, I want to say Happy New Year. As you can see, it is 3:05 p.m. on January 1st. So, Happy New Year, everybody. One thing is that, first of all, yeah, it's not the best weather, but it could be worse. Right now, I believe it is currently about 50 degrees. Now that I really have my weather app that I could show you. But yeah, right now it's currently about 50 degrees. Very warm for December. Temperatures tomorrow are going to collapse into themselves. And one thing I want to look at is I want to analyze 2021 severe weather, the bad weather that happened in 2021 in the final quarter of the year. So, as you know, 2021 saw a lot of catastrophic weather. It could break 2020's record for the most billion-dollar disasters, but I don't think that it's quite gone that far. So far, we've had $19 billion weather disasters confirmed. And two, the December 10th to 11th 2021 tornado outbreak and the December 2021 Midwest tornado outbreak in the derecho are both likely to have caused over $1 billion, but that has not yet been confirmed. But even in that only 2020 catastrophically saw 22 of these events. Nonetheless, in the final quarter of the year, we really didn't see that much bad weather. Well, we did, but it wasn't like anything that we've seen prior. So, the last $1 billion weather disaster for 2021 that has been confirmed was actually the Western Wildfires. And the Western Wildfires ended on the 30th of September and were prevalent throughout the third quarter as well as the end of the second, existing throughout all of June, July, August, and September. And a lot of cyclones in the area actually was why all this wound up stopping. So this video will be overly US-centric, but we will touch upon other global events after the US events have ended. So, going back to that, because all these disasters are in the US are for the $1 billion anyway. Now, going back to the stuff, what about actual one-time events? Well, that answer would actually be Hurricane Nicholas. Hurricane Nicholas wound up striking Texas on the 15th of September. It formed in the Gulf of Mexico on the 12th, and it quickly, but I don't think it rapidly, intensified. Quickly intensified, I could say subjectively. Rapid intensification means that it has to have had a 35-mile-per-hour wind increase in 24 hours. Because it didn't intensify that quickly, unlike Humberto of 2007, which did intensify that quickly, it does not qualify, I don't think. TCR could prove me wrong, like it always does. Now, Nicholas caused $1.1 billion in damage due to the onset of flooding. It did cause severe wind damage in Texas, leaving 500,000 people without power, but a lot of it was due to the flooding. You kept seeing things of tropical rainstorm Nicholas, because the winds were only 15 miles an hour, not even enough to be a tropical depression. But it was still producing a lot of rain. And those 15-mile-per-hour winds were taking 5,000 feet or 1.5 kilometers in the air, where the wind is faster. So the wind was basically calm, but it was still producing an intense amount of rain damage. So the rains were coming down very heavily. Lots of flooding occurred. Police just saw up to 1.5 feet, if not even more rain as the system slowly moved its way across Texas and into Louisiana before dissipating, but rain extended as far out as Alabama. Now, after that, things changed. The reason why was because we were transitioning into a La Nina. And because of that, there was an extreme amount of wind shear over the Gulf Coast. So because of that, the amount of, really weather events that we saw were dissipating. We saw a lot of tropical cyclones after that. Odette, Peter, Rose, Sam, Teresa, and Victor. However, only Sam gained notability, and they were all fish storms. Sam gained notability due to its longevity, the fact that it had one of the highest accumulated cyclone energies of all time for a cyclone at 54 did not help to make 2021 extremely active by ACE standards. Well, it got it closer, but we still only finished with 141 units, 12 less than what we need. But Sam tried, I'll say that. And due to being a major hurricane for 186 hours, tying it for the 5th longest. You also really couldn't mention anything about Sam without saying about 600 words in it at bare minimum. It's also notable in the sense that the 155 mile per hour winds and 929 millibar pressure was confirmed during recon, and there's a chance the TCR could actually turn it into a Category 5 hurricane. There was speculation about that. 2020, as we know, failed to see a Category 5 hurricane because Hurricane Iota was downgraded to a Category 4 in the TCR. And while people thought Lua and Ada could get upgraded in the TCRs, more particularly on Ada, neither of them wound up getting upgraded to Category 5 status. The reason why it was downgraded was mainly because of questionable SMFR readings by some of the craft, mainly due to them being at higher elevations, and also they were kind of flip-floppy on the issue. So the TCR vetted it as a Category 4. The TCR later mentioned why it was downgraded. This wasn't actually added for about 3 weeks after. So if Sam were to be a Category 5, it will be our first September 2019's Hurricane Lorenzo. Now, as far as hurricanes go, what happened? Well, the intense Gulf storms that we know really just didn't form at all. They just really didn't form at all. They couldn't form because of the intense amount of shear in the area. As a matter of fact, really all of our severe weather events began to come to a close. So, heading into October, there wasn't really anything that could have really caused strong weather events. But there was a few things. So, October saw 121 tornadoes, which is actually a near record large amount. However, none of the outbreaks managed to garner much notability. The October 9th to 13th outbreak failed to get notability because in spite of it causing 51 tornadoes, it only spawned a few EF2 tornadoes and nothing stronger. Because of this, a lot of tornadoes were rural and didn't cause damage, so the amount of damaging tornadoes that you had that caused severe damage was actually kind of low. October 24th, 25th is another outbreak I want to point out. This outbreak wound up causing 2 injuries and 2 EF3 tornadoes, one of which caused a tornado emergency. However, tornado emergencies do not mean notability, especially given how liberally they're given these days. When the first one was given in the 1999 Bridge Creek Moore tornado, it was an extremely powerful message because that was the first time. But a lot of times they give these to tornadoes which wind up being busts. The Tishimogo Tornado back on March 24, 2020 wound up not even being notable enough for a Wikipedia section, but there's a tornado emergency. So you can't use these to say a tornado outbreak is very notable. 2 EF3 tornadoes in general makes notability, but combined with the fact that there's like, I think 18 tornadoes, it really wasn't that notable. You can compare it to the one on August 24th, 2016, but that one was more notable because it caused 21 injuries, it caused 24 tornadoes, and even that's kind of on the low end. Now, as far as the, what's it called? Oh yeah, the October 26th, 27th outbreak. This did see a fatal EF1 tornado in Moss Point, Mississippi, when a woman driving on Mississippi Highway 63 was ejected from a vehicle, killing her instantly. However, while there were a fair amount of EF2 tornadoes, there were only 17 of them. Generally, you need it to be in about the 20s for it to be notable, with only 1 sole fatality. And even then, that isn't an automatic guarantee. We saw more notable tornadoes that saw one death that really couldn't hit that brink of notability, such as the 2021 Fulton tornado in Alabama, or the April 9th to 11th tornado outbreak, seeing a fatal EF3 in Louisiana. Unfortunately, tornado deaths do happen, and we do just have to live with them in that reality. So none of the October outbreaks garnered much notability. There were two other small ones mingled in there. The October 15th to 16th outbreak, mainly in the Ohio Valley, which saw an EF2 tornado and an EF0 causing an injury. And I don't know if there's an injury in this one. I think there was an EF2 further east in the Ohio Valley that wound up being notable for being one of Pittsburgh's largest autumnal outbreaks, but that's kind of trivial. But again, both saw 17 tornadoes. And they were both actually in the Northeast, which was not spared by tornado season this year. Now, as far as the October went in other types of bad weather in the U.S., well, what else happened? Well, towards the end of October, a big bomb cyclone hit California. It was compared to, oh my God, this is muddy. Ooh, this is muddy. A big bomb cyclone hit, oh God, I'm gonna have to cross it over there. I'll have to make it quick. The October 2021 bomb cyclone in the Pacific Northwest. Not a nor'wester, that's not how they're called. Even though the equivalent is a nor'easter. This notable bomb cyclone, yeah, okay, I'm on the side. This notable bomb cyclone caused 2 deaths, about 350,000 power outages, and about $400 million in damage. That, it was compared to, in terms of ferocity, the 1962 Columbus Day storm, aka Typhoon Frida. However, that saw 46 deaths and $230 million in damage, and it was mainly because of the fact that you have inflation, and a storm has to have a higher bar even without inflation to cause more damage with less structural stuff. Because even though it was slightly weaker, it tracked a lot closer to the coast and was in general more of a bigger system. Like if you look at the Columbus Day storm track, you'll see it got really close to the coast in San Francisco and then paralleled up the west coast. Meanwhile, for this one, it seemingly got close to Vancouver, but that was about as much lineage as that storm got. The bomb cyclone, though, was notable. It also helped shut down wildfire season, which had crippled the state of California before this event. Then, a separate system wound up causing a nor'easter on the East Coast at the end of October as well. This caused 500,000 power outages in Massachusetts alone, and about 600,000 in general. Oh God, the side's wet. It also caused $200 million in damage. For the second time, a flash flood in its history, a flash flood emergency was issued for the state of New York, this time for the Finger Lakes region. The first time was, of course, with Hurricane Ida bearing down the coast. A New Yorker died further downstate in the Hudson Valley when they went kayaking, and a New Jerseyite was also killed. Surprisingly, nobody in Massachusetts actually died, even though the system was arguably strongest there. And all in all, you had $200 million in damage. The nor'easter would later go on to become subtropical storm Wanda on October 31st, and would become tropical storm Wanda on November 2nd, dissipating on November 7th. People have tried to compare Wanda to things like Melissa, but Melissa isn't comparable because it was kind of transitioning as it was going through, although Melissa's notability from 2019 in of itself is questionable because the nor'easter only caused $24,000 in damages and no deaths. Leslie was also compared, but Leslie became a subtropical depression kind of just as it was exiting Florida, and that was more notable because it caused $950 million in damage and 3 deaths, plus Leslie also caused some minor impacts on the East Coast, whereas Wanda was a complete fish storm that affected nobody. People thought it could have become a European windstorm, but it didn't. And there was also a blizzard that caused $50 million in damage, but it didn't get much notability in the upper Midwest in spite of that. But it was really the first blizzard of the year, even though the first snow in the continental United States fell during astronomical summer on the 18th of September. Meanwhile, here in Plainview, oh God, I just forgot my location. It was 84 degrees, it felt like 88 degrees, and it was miserably hot. Thank God cold fronts came down, pushing the lows down to the 50s with highs in the mid-70s. And at this point, we were still had a really hot October, but it was literally snowing in the upper Midwest. Lots of snow. The now November was really quiet. There was another smaller blizzard that also caused impacts in the upper Midwest in the beginning of November, and we don't know if it was that specific blizzard or not, but on November 13th, an intense lines of thunderstorms moved through New York City. And a lot of people thought New York City could see its first November tornadoes. People thought that for November 2020 when a tornado warning was issued, but ultimately no tornadoes fell. However, this time, there were significant tornadoes. Just kidding, they weren't. They were all weak. But there were a lot of them. There were 11 of them, in fact. You first had a tornado in Nassau County, the one closest to me, that touched down in Woodmere at 2:37 p.m., It also touched down in Uniondale and made a final touchdown in Levittown at 2:55 p.m. before lifting. Suffolk County saw 5 tornadoes, and there were 3 more in Connecticut. There was actually an EF1 in Suffolk County in Connecticut, and there were 2 more tornadoes on Rhode Island. I'm not sure if they only issued up to an enhanced or if they actually issued a moderate risk for portions of eastern Rhode Island, so that's like a 10 to 15% kind of difference. But it was really impressive, and it was November's only notable outbreak. Well, there was an EF0 tornado touchdown in Vancouver that got a fair amount of notability, and on November 6th, and a tornado outbreak in Italy on November 16th to 18th that wound up causing a death and 2 injuries. But that's about it. And November would wind up seeing a very little weather events. After these tornadoes, it would not actually be until December 6th where a minor outbreak which caused 2 injuries and 13 tornadoes would even touch down again. And this was across the upper not upper mid, in like the Illinois, Kentucky area. And this would be a preview as to what December 10th to 11th outbreak, that monster outbreak, was capable of producing. Beginning on December 9th is a pretty bad winter storm that dropped a lot of snow in Minnesota and Wisconsin. The system then transitioned into a mega tornado outbreak, relying on temperatures in the upper 70s in some areas in the southeast. The first tornadoes began to touch down, such as the EF4 that went from Monette, Arkansas, all the way into Obion County, Tennessee, going through 3 states, causing 7 deaths and a lot of damage. The most notable tornado touched down at 8:49 p.m. on December 10th and lifted at 11:47, becoming one of the longest track tornadoes in American history, comparable to the great 1925 tri-state tornado. A whopping 58 people died in this monster EF4 tornado, and a lot of people thought it could be an EF5, which would be, well, for one, only the 3rd EF5 in December, and for 2, it would become the I think it would end the longest EF5 drought in history. From May 3rd, 1999's Great Bridge Creek to Moore tornado, the 2007 EF5 on May 4th that devastated Greensburg, Kansas. Not a single EF5, actually that tornado was an F5, not an EF5. However, from May 20th, 2013, when the Moore tornado touched down, there was not a single EF5 tornado since. Even though people thought the tornadoes like the Vinola tornado in April 2014, or some of the EF4s from May 2016 could have been EF5s. Ultimately, it was decided upon that the damage was not at EF5 level, and this is just another example of them. As far as the what was it called? The 2021 December 10th to 11th outbreak, and EF3 caused 17 deaths and 63 injuries in Bowling Green, which is a pretty major city. A few hours after that, there was an EF3 in Edwardsville, Illinois, that caused an Amazon warehouse to collapse, killing 6, and a fair amount of other destruction. There were also 3, in addition to the 90 tornadic deaths, there were 3 deaths as a result of non-tornadic incidents. Oh my god, another puddle. I hate puddles. But I guess I shouldn't have really walked after looking. Oh my god, my shoes are getting like soaked. There's so much moisture in them. Well, on the one hand, it was a good foot cleansing, and the waves do look nice. But on the other hand, I mean, that's like 50-degree water, because it was cold rain. Also, my shoes are probably going to smell for a while after this. I have to go back to school on Monday. That's a lot of fun. Now, anyway, as far as the tornadoes went of the as far as the tornadoes went of as far as the tornadoes went, yeah, very catastrophic. You saw 70 of them in total. Now, would December be done? Oh no, it wouldn't, because there will be 100 tornadoes in the tornado outbreak in the Rachel on December 15th. The latest, the Rachel, stealing the record from one in October 2010, caused 5 deaths and over 600,000 power outages. Both of these last 2 storms likely caused over $1 billion in damage. This one actually saw more significant tornadoes as an EF2 plus at 29 versus 25, but it was capped off at EF2s. The 100 tornado seems kind of sussy, so we'll have to see in the NCEI day if they combine any of the paths. We also need to see if they confirm more tornadoes either in this one or in the December 10th to 11th outbreak, or maybe in a few of the other more scattered outbreaks. This was because temperatures of the mid-70s were able to go as far north as Iowa. They saw their record high monthly temperature of 76 degrees Fahrenheit or 24 degrees Celsius, which is pretty much like a summertime temperature. The last time it got to that temperature here, I believe, was, well, according to the Weather Channel archives, it was October 15th. Wait, no, 14th actually. Dark Sky claims it did get to that kind of a temperature on October 15th after that, as well as October 20th. The 20th they claimed actually got to 78 degrees Fahrenheit or 26 degrees Celsius. The Weather Channel claims, though, that both of these events were cooler than Dark Sky did. AccuWeather also backs up Dark Sky pretty reliably on this one. The Weather Channel, if you look at their monthly archives, it's at least for where I live, I would say it's inconsistent from about the middle of October into about the beginning of September. But because they did manage to get November 9th correctly, I would say they were accurate after that point. Anyway, oh my god, not realize how long I was recording this video for. Anyway, as far as the rate show event has gotten, was it catastrophic? Yes. If you look at the damage across Iowa and some of the other states that are affected, Minnesota has never seen a December tornado before, and in this event they saw 20. It was very bad. And it was all on a course of, December 15th as well, at least many of the more notable aspects of it. So did I feel a lot of these systems? Well, yes, of course I did, of where I live. I actually was in one of the epicenters of the nor'easter. Before it, I actually felt a sudden warm-up. The Sunday before, low of 43, wind chills got down, I think, to the 30s, and a high of 61. But then as the temperature began to plateau off, the next day was 56. Our school went off to a state park, and it was very humid. It was like about 70, and it felt like about 71 with the intense dew points. And from there, it was essentially it was even warmer here. I think here I got up to 73. The Weather Channel is being annoying and saying it only got to 69. And then the next day, you had about a low of 59, high of 67. The humidity went up, so the humidity was like nearly maxed out. It was pretty much about the last like really like just warm day here. You did have some days that got warmer, but other events mingled in with them to the sense that this was kind of like the warmest day that we had to date. Well, not including any days before this, of course. And the winds were strong. They did get into the 40-mile-per-hour gust range. We did not lose power, unlike what happened for Isaias, which you might remember. We did see a lot of rainfall. There were points where we saw rain coming down at a rate of about 1.4 inches an hour. But ultimately, we actually wound up seeing only about 2.4 inches of rain. It's kind of just one thing you have to really worry about after like every single thing. Actually, fun fact, the day before the November 13th outbreak, we saw a November 12th storm where temperatures were also similar to this, but it was cool. It was a bit cooler. So it's kind of like you'll see how for some people, what they kind of did on this day was similar to what they did on the 26th, and for some of them, like, they had just already put the shorts away, because, I mean, honestly, it's kind of whatever. I put mine away in the middle of September, but that's also unusual, But anyway, as far as the Wanda went, that's kind of what happened with Wanda. After that, you had these, I just ruined my sweatshirt. It's gonna have to go get washed now. Oh well. As far as the remaining, parts of the week, the temperatures were just kind of in that like fuzzy kind of range where it's like you had lows in the lower 50s, highs in the higher 50s, and until you wind up seeing in the low until you wind up getting to the upper 40s for the lows. It's like we had a marching uniform when it was 54 degrees, but the combination of rain and darkness made it feel like the teens, which is, as we all know, highly unusual, which actually lets you quite a fair amount of potential infections. Oh wow, this is a new record, 30-minute video. Nice. The October month would then be like even more notable because Remember that October 16th tornado outbreak? Well, that was kind of the only one that was kind of felt here. But it was. Temperatures before this was still like in the upper 60s and like almost summer-like. And then after that, plop! You immediately had to go down to the lower 60s. And by the next morning, it was in the lower 50s. High that next day was 64. And then temperatures began to get into the 40s. Like they did the last time. On October 1st, but unlike this time, wind was much stronger, and it got colder on the next day, and the high that day was 60 degrees. That's right, 60 degrees, which was like literally the first time we saw that since like May. You were pushing into new depths of cold temperatures. I love to see it, but oh. Current temperature 52 degrees. In case you didn't see, so yeah, low 50s right now, which is really warm for January. Now as far as the October 16th outbreak, we didn't see tornadoes here, and the 21st surprisingly we really didn't see any impacts from, because it's like you did have lows in the mid 50s the last time when you led up to this, but then the next day also got into the upper 70s, so it's not really like any kind of cold front could have taken place. Even though there were tornadoes here, I don't know, these systems do generally move northeast, so even though we generally see it more of as a due east, they could have just, skipped right over us. It's like I actually remember from my earth science thing where we had a question and I got it wrong, because like if you are in Binghamton, where would the storm go next? So I thought it would be Slide Mountain, because Slide Mountain's kind of due east of Binghamton. But the answer would actually be in Plattsburgh, because Plattsburgh is northeast of Binghamton. Anyway, how cold would it get after that? Well, it would get into the, into October. It would get, as we all know, in October, we didn't see the bomb cyclone. Actually, the bomb cyclone we might have seen as the Halloween storm, but it wasn't really covered that well. The bomb cyclone, did actually affect here on Halloween weekend. So it's kind of like, it's like temperatures were in the lower 60s and it was raining, and then the rain was significant, and then you kind of just like had this very weird feeling in November. We all know the November 13th thing directly affected us. It was like 61 degrees before the storm complex, and then after it came through about an hour later, it was 48 degrees. Which would also be the high temperature the next day, as the lows would get down to like 35 degrees. It'll be an extremely cold November, and it'll go that way until you had a day where almost an extreme temperature difference, where you had a low of 32 and a maybe even 30, and a high of 56, 57, as you had a rapid warm-up ahead of yet another storm. And you're going to see this is a pretty common theme of November, just that none of these storms could really garner much notability. Now, December, we weren't really affected by the December 56 system. We were affected by the December 10 to 11 system as it came through on December 12th. Actually, Newark, New Jersey, they said that that there was a 2% chance of tornadoes occurring near that area, but that didn't happen, even though we were in a marginal risk area. Well, not us, we were close to one. Really, actually, after the massive outbreak occurred, after about like 1:20 Central Time, so 2:20 Eastern Time in the morning, the outbreak busted and it could only produce a few tornadoes. Of course, NCEI data could always confirm some more tornadoes, but without that, what I'm saying is totally 100% accurate. How long my phone battery is going to be? It's probably going to kill me. Now, the December 10th to 11th outbreak wound up again seeing, a temperature drop, but it wasn't like as substantial. The December 15th one, though, did it affect us? Yes, but really like into the 17th and 18th. It moved really slowly across the country. It wasn't like anything like, the Plains windstorm in Colorado and Kansas. We didn't see anything like that. We had, again, Category 2 hurricane force gusts. So actually 55 hurricane force gusts, breaking the record from the August 2020 Midwest derecho. You had a, we didn't have any tornadoes near here. It was a bit lackluster, but, and you could feel it because, like, there was a day where it was, like, in the upper 50s for most of the day until the temperature wound up crashing. And that's just one of those things that will generally signal to you, okay, there's something bad going on. December, the 29th to 31st thing, we really have only seen, like, mist from it. January 2nd, so tomorrow, the cold front actually will come over us. So we're going to see, highs before we're, like, in the mid to upper 50s. And then the next day, we're going to see the highs get down to, like, the mid 30s, honestly. It's going to be a dramatic change. Some places are going to see, real field temps that can drop as 80 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 44 degrees Celsius. Massive, Vicksburg, Mississippi right now is, I think, 81, feels like 84 with humidity. And then they're going to go down to 26, and God knows what the real field could feel like with wind. At least with humidity, it's capped off at a certain point. So, if it's like 81 degrees, it can't feel like more than 93. But with wind chill, you don't really have a cap off until the winds are 50 miles an hour. And when you're at that temperature, those kinds of wind chills are deadly. Actually, 50-mile-an-hour winds can be deadly for a number of reasons, but especially that. Very powerful storm. So far, I've seen 11, 12 tornadoes. So far, just remembered the one in Hopkinsville from today, from the starting on the 29th, and there's a big risk for EF2 plus tornadoes, though we haven't seen any yet. But on January 2nd, this outbreak is expected to come to a close with only a few weak tornadoes expected. So, do I think that we're going to see anything else massive in January? I don't think so. And honestly, after a record-breaking December, we might honestly just get to the point where it's kind of slow for multiple months on end. January, February, March. Last time we had a very calm winter, well, minus for 2 destructive tornadoes. And honestly, this winter I'm kind of feeling like it just might be that as well. So, as far as international events gone, because I promised I would get to that, there were many European windstorms that combined caused 27 deaths. Like Blas caused 9, Aurora caused 6. Aurora also caused tornadoes, and Carmel caused 4. Think stuff like that. Orwin, I think, caused 3. Think stuff like that. Cyclone Apollo was a Medicaid that caused 5 deaths. Tropical Storm Kompasu in the Philippines wound up causing 44 deaths and $127 million now, which is kind of a lot. Typhoon Rai, mega typhoon, it caused 4 deaths in the Philippines alone, I think 4 in total. And it's like $730 million now. The flooding in Malaysia saw nearly $5 billion in damage, as well as 48 deaths so far, and was from Tropical Depression 29W. We saw in the Pacific, Hurricane Rick caused a death and $10 million down in Mexico, and so did Pamela. Pamela would cause flash flooding in Texas as well, causing 2 deaths. So, you had a lot of destructive impacts in 2021 cyclones and storms. In the last quarter, it was definitely a bit of a lackluster one, but that's not to say that it didn't exist. December really packed in a critical punch for these tornadoes. with December being, again, preliminary data suggested as that was 8 times more active than normal, doubling the old record from 2002. That record was actually broken in a single day because there were 99 in that and then 100 in derecho, 99 in December 2002. So far, we've seen 198 tornadoes, exactly double, about 8.25 times the average of 24 in December. Deadliest December as well. So even if you wanted to make like a 1953 comparison at this point, you can't. 2021 has gotten above that. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and please stay tuned for the next one. Thanks. Bye.